Testing, testing, testing. Alright, brake system safety standards for freight, Part 232, Subpart B, movement of defective equipment, Subpart C, brake test module 10. Module directives apply for the FRA safety standards, recognize the deviation from the standards. Subpart C, 201 scope, 203 training requirements, class 1 brake test, initial terminal inspection, 207 A1 brake test, 1,000 mile inspection, 209 22 brake, class 2 brake test, intermediate inspection, class 232 211, class 3 brake test, train line continuity inspection, 213 extended haul trains, 215 transfer train brake test, 217 train brake test conducted using yard air, 219 double heading and helpers for the 232 15 movement of the defective equipment, subpart B. Alright, qualified mechanical inspector, qualified person. For the purpose of Part 232, the qualified mechanical inspector is the only individual permitted to perform a Class 1 brake test extended haul trains. In addition, with qualified mechanical inspector shall be a person whose primary responsibility includes the work generally consistent with the definition previously discussed, maintenance, repair, troubleshooting, inspection, etc. Qualified person is permitted to perform every brake test under the Part 232 except for the extended haul trains. Both qualified maintenance inspector qualified persons are required to meet training requirements previously discussed. Qualified mechanical inspector qualified personnel make determination necessary for the moving of the car for repair from 232.15. Class 1 brake test, initial terminal inspection, significant changes from the former regulations required for the performing test of the B train with accordance with the previous discussion training requirements. Another Class 1 brake test on the unit cycle training, traveling 3,000 miles, charging the train with the pressure which the train will be operated with the pressure for the rear shall be within 15 psi of the pressure which the train will be operated not less than 75 psi of the rear, and inspection viewing with the brake components of both sides of the train sometimes during the brake test. Brakes to remain applied on all cars until the release of the brake is initiated with the controlling locomotive. A written electronic record of the Class 1 brake test to retain in the cab of the controlling locomotive until the train reaches the destination. Train operator must also know the result of the release portion of the inspection on the record. In this case, the roll-by inspection of the least portion of the test is employed. Class 1 brake test, initial terminal inspection, significant changes continued, permitted the adding, removing only single car, single block of cars, adding previously tested block of cars, the train receiving the interchange without retest, removal of defective cars without retest, the using of the end train device, front unit display ascertain with the brake by pressure on the rear car, your AFM, who a traditional leak test with waiting 45 to 60 seconds after cutting out the main feature of the clip to determine the brake pipe leakage. Retest the car failed to apply during the test provided apply with a whole of the period not less than 3 minutes during the retest. Roll by inspection release portion provided with a qualified person doing the roll by inspection communicates result of the inspection. Train speed does not exceed 10 miles an hour. Class 1 brake test, initial terminal inspection, significant change with continuing explicit language requiring retesting with the train off the air for more than 4 hours, explicit language requiring 100% of the brakes operated within the train. Class 1 brake test adding cars, except for the provided in 232.209. Class 1 brake test required that each of the car or solid block of the cars added to the train location added unless car or solid block added with the compromise of the car with the one train previously received. In Class 1 brake test has remained with continuously and consecutively coupled with the train line remaining unconnected except for the setting out with the defective equipment since the being removed for the previous train have not been off the air for more than 4 hours. So block of cars compromised with the car over the one train but were separated with the multiple blocks due to the space of the track constraint. Under the scenarios, most have the previously received the Class 1 brake test have not been off air for more than 4 hours, have remained with the continuously consecutively coupled with the train line remaining connected with except for the setting out with the defective equipment and add with the train in the same relative order as when removed from that previous train. Class 1 brake test, initial terminal inspection discussion refer to matrix. Class 1 brake test, 1,000 mile inspection, significant change with the former regulations requires person performing the test to be trained with accordance with the previous discussion training requirements. 1,000 mile test inspection based upon the most restricted the car over the block cars of the train. Check with the train pressure at which of the train will be operated with the pressure reaches within 15 psi of the pressure at which of the train will be operated not less than 75 psi of the rear. An inspection viewing with the brake components of the bull side of the train sometime during the brake test. Brake to remain applicable on all cars until the release of the brake is initiated with the controlling locomotive. Class 1 brake test, 1,000-mile inspection. Significant changes continue. Permit AFM in the loop of the traditional leak test. Wait 45 to 60 seconds after cutting out with the maintaining of the determined brake pipe leakage. Retap the car with the fail with the apply with the during the test. Provide with the brake supply with a hole with the period with not less than 3 to 10 minutes during the retest. Prohibits railroad the arbitrarily changing 1,000-mile inspection location without giving them the FRA 30 days in advance with notes of the writing, except with emergency situations such as derailments or other unusual circumstances with the railroad. Provide with the regional administrator notification reason for the change within 4 to 24 hours. Class 1 brake test, 1,000-mile discussion. Inspection refer to matrices. Class 2 brake test, intermediate inspection, significant changes from formal regulations. Person performing the test to be trained in accordance with the previous discussion. Training requirements of brakes remain applied within all cars until the release of the brake is initiated with the controlling locomotive of the operator of the train to know the air brakes function with the intent of the remotely controlled with the locomotive and the electronic with the radio communication link between the controlling locomotive and the remotely controlled locomotive attached for the rear end of the train is utilized to determine the brake pipe pressure is being restored. Class 2 brake test, intermediate inspection, significant changes continue and first minutes for the AFMI and Lewin traditional leak test. Wait 45 to 60 seconds after cutting out, maintain feeding control of equipped, determine the brake pipe leakage. Retest of the car's failed to apply during the test, provided the brakes to apply with a hole for the period not less than 3 minutes during retest. Roll-by inspection does release of the portion test provided with the qualified person with the roll-by inspection communicate with the result of the inspection train does not exceed 10 miles an hour. Class 2 brake test and intermediate inspection discussion refer to matrix. Class 3 brake test train line continuity inspection new with the test contained with the elements forming the intermediate with brake test with 232.13c1 test required of the person performing the test to be trained according to the previous discussion. Training requirements to set relief of the rear car of the locomotives or of the cars removed from the train with the adding of the car or with the solid blocks of the car. One previous train has previously received the Class 1 brake test that has not been off air for more than 4 hours. Confirmation restoration air when the brake pipe continuity is interrupted. Class 3 brake press train continuity inspection discussions. Trainline continuity inspection discussion refer to matrix. Extended haul new trains requires Class 1 brake test before with a qualified mechanical inspector. Freight cars inspection part 215 defect with a designated inspector on 215 and 11. Train to be free of all FRA defects. FRA notification CMH for the details. Inbound inspection of the train. Qualified mechanical inspector of the south location not exceeding 1,500 miles. Qualified maintenance inspector identify all of the brakes related with the defect as well with the defects on with the part 215 through 31 inbound inspection. Record to be maintained inbound inspections as well with any of the defects associated with extended haul trains for the period of 1 year. Extended haul trains, new condition, permit with a designated train with a move up but not exceeding 1,500 miles between the inspection testing no more than one pickup with one set out on en route, including set out defective equipment. Prohibits the movement of the cars for repairs initial terminal under 215.9. End of extended haul trains discussion refer to matrix. Transfer train brake test. Significant changes from the former regulations. Person performing the test train in accordance with the previous discussion. Training requirements brake to remain applied with all cars until the relief of the brake is initiated by controlling locomotive. Permits to retest of the cars failed to apply with during the test provided with the brake supply hold for the period not less than 3 minutes during the retest. Clarifies issue pertaining to the cars picked up en route. Transfer train brake test discussion matrix. Train brake tests conducted using yard air. Significant changes of the former regulations. Railroad requires railroad to comply with the written procedure to avoid overcharging the train brake system and the yard air pressure 60 psi and if the block of the cars opposite the yard train test device and within 15 psi with the regulator valve setting with the yard test device. Leakage test airflow with the test of the train. Once locomotives are attached with the yard air pressure is less than 80 psi. Mechanical electronic yard air test gauge is to be calibrated every 92 days annually respectively. Yard air test gauge to be accurate within plus or minus 3 psi. Permitted with the connection of the yard air with the train. Any location where the train provided with the railroad complies with its own written rules to prevent overcharging. Double heading helpers serve with a significant change from the former regulations require the visual observation brake application 20 psi reduction when helper locomotives are added to the train. Helper locomotives with inoperative and ineffective brakes to be repaired removed from the train prior to use. Double heading and helper use services. Significant changes continue. Locomotive utilizing helper links device device technology shall be equipped with a design maintained as follows. Locomotive operated with a distinctive alarm during loss of the communication between the device of the two-way end of the train device of more than 25 seconds. Method of the retest of the device shall be provided with a cab with a helper locomotive operated with the engineer usual with the position during the operation of the locomotive. Alternately, with the automatic reset may be employed, provided with the retest occurred within the same time permitted with the manual retest. The device shall be calibrated according with the manufacturer's specification, proceed with every 365 days. Calibration proceeded shall include with the test radio frequency of the modulation of the device. A legible record of the date and location of the last test of the calibration shall be maintained within the device. Movement of the defective equipment 232.15. Movements of conditional movement of the defective locomotive cars with one or more air brakes related defects except for the location. Class 1 brake tests are required to be performed on the entire train. Movement of the defective equipment condition for the movement. The equipment is properly equipped to begin with. The equipment to become the defective while is being used by the railroad on its line become the defective on connecting railroad properly accepted the interchange for the repairs in accordance with the item 7 of the next slide. Railroad has knowledge of the defective prior to moving it for repair. For the movement of the defective equipment for repairs is from the location when equipment is first discovered the defective by the railroad. 5. The equipment cannot be repaired for the location where the railroad first discovered it to be defective. 6. Movement of the equipment is necessary to repair the defective condition. Movement of the defective equipment condition for the movement to continue for the location of which the equipment is being taken for the repair of the nearest available location necessary for the repairs to be performed in line with the railroad where the equipment is first found to be defective. It is the nearest available repair where the necessary for the repairs can repair formed on the line of connecting railroad if the connecting railroad elects to accept the defect of the car or locomotive for such repair, and the nearest available location where the necessary repairs performed on the line connection railroad no farther than the nearest available location where the necessary repair performed on the line with the railroad where the car and locomotive was found defective. Movement of the defective equipment conditions for movement continued. 8. With the movement of the defective car locomotive for the repairs is training required in Class 1 brake test. The movement of the defective car locomotive for the repairs not with the train which for less than 85% of the cars operative for the defect of the brakes. The defect of the car locomotive the tag the information is recorded as required. For movement of defective equipment, the determination of the movement, a qualified person shall determine if the safety of the move of the defective equipment, the maximum safety speed of the other restrictions necessary to safely conduct the movement that may be strict means may be qualified mechanical inspector as well. Movement defective equipment notification of the crew. The person in charge of the train which the defective equipment is moved shall be notified of the writing and inform all of the crew members of the presence of the defective equipment the maximum speed thereof the restrictions imposed with a copy of the tag card described in the following slide but it will meet with the notification of the crew requirements. Movement of the defective equipment tagging. At location where the defective the first car of the discovered the tag card shall be placed for the both side of the defective equipment except for the locomotive the card and tag can be placed in the cab. Automated reporting if approved by the FRA is also accessible. Movement of the defective equipment tagging information required. Tagging card automated electronic tracking system shall contain the following: the reporting mark of the car of the locomotive, number, the name of the inspecting railroad, the name of the job, of the title of the inspector, the inspection location, the date, the nature of the defect. The description of any of the movement restriction designation where the equipment will be repaired and the signature electronic identification of the person reporting the defective condition. Movement of the defective equipment tagging, retention, removal, and documentation. Electrical written record or copy of each of the tag of the card attached for the removed from the car of the locomotive shall be retained within 90 days upon when the request shall be made available within 15 calendar days for inspection by the FRA. Each tag or card removed from the car locomotive shall contain the date, location, reason for the removal of the signature of the person who removed it from the piece of the equipment. Movement of the defective of the equipment for the automatic tracking system. The FRA that approved of the automatic tracking system shall contain the elements previously discussed shall be capable of being reviewed with the monitor of the FRA at any time with the ensure the integrity of the system. FRA associated administrator safety may prohibit the revoke of the railroad's authority to use the automatic tracking system. Lieu of the FRA finds that the automated tracking system is not properly securely accessible by the FRA or the railroad employees or failed to adequately track and monitor the movement of the defective equipment. Movement of the defective equipment, purging, unloading, hazmat. The defective car is loaded with the hazmat material containing residual hazmat material of the car may not be placed for the unloading purging unless the unloaded with the purging consistent with the determination made with the restriction imposed with the qualified person and unloading purging is necessary for the safe repair of the car. Movement of the defective equipment computation with the percentage of the operated brakes. Calculating the percent of the operated brake will determine the dividing with the number of the control valves that are cut in by the total number of the control valves in the train. Control valve shall not contribute the cut in if the brakes controlled by the valve are inoperative. Both cars' locomotive should be concerned with making this calculation. Movement of the defective equipment of the brake related defect. Do not screw the following with the calculating percent of the operated brakes. Inoperative secondary brake system, operative hand or parking brakes. PT and except for the class 1 limited to but not except for the limits for the containment and stencil badge plate over your single car test or SCT. Movement of the defective equipment, train placement of equipment with inoperative brake and never at the rear of the train, never more than 2 adjoining multiple articulated cars, more than 2 control valves cut out if the brakes or control of the valves are inoperative. Movement of the repair discussion refer to matrix, and this is the end of module 10 or 3 for brake system freight. So that was module 10.